هنا صوت فلسطين صوت الشعب الفلسطيني.
This is the voice of Palestine, the voice of the Palestinian people.
Good evening and welcome to our November 5th edition of The Voice of Palestine. Tonight our feature interview is with American anti-war and civil rights activist and author Lenni Brenner, who was born into an Orthodox Jewish family. We will talk with him about the U.S. elections, the influence of the Zionist lobby on the two parties as outlined in his article, Why Our Politicians Are More Zionist Than Our Jews, and the effects of the Palestinian struggle and the future of the U.S. relations with the Arab world, and we mean by that with the Arab people. It's good to have you, Lenni. We had you once before on The Voice of Palestine, but it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Could you tell us to start?
Thank you.
Could you tell us to start with, do the American people have a choice in these elections?
Well, there are differences between the two parties, but there are also tremendous similarities. Both of them are in favor of the continuing the war in Afghanistan at least until 2014, and both of them compete for telling the public how much they love Israel and how much they're going to do for Israel and so on and so forth. So, but, on some questions, like, let's say, abortion rights, the Democrats are in favor of abortion rights and the Republicans are against. So there are differences, but on basic questions, let me give you an example. In 2011, Obama organized what the Wall Street Journal called the biggest weapons deal in American history, $60 billion weapons deal with Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Okay, now, and I'm sure most of your listeners know, Saudi Arabia is the only government on the planet Earth that doesn't permit women to drive cars. Mm-hmm. Now, here's Obama, he's all for human rights, civil liberties, and on and on and on and on. And he's arming this regime that belongs in a museum somewhere, that kind of thing.
That's true.
And,
But for us Arabs and Palestinians, it really smacks of racism, because you are for human rights for women in the United States, but not for women in the Middle East, just because they are different culture. Isn't that the case? Won't that be your understanding?
Let me put it this way. Obama can't defend harming Saudi Arabia, but the fact is that nobody except left-wingers like myself mm-hmm. and the anti-war movement are challenging him. In other words, the Republicans didn't say, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing arming this government that doesn't permit women to drive cars? They didn't say a thing.
No, yeah.
Now, understand that, American politics is so twisted that sometimes the tragedy is comedy, Like in the United States, in a lot of states, there are Republicans who are constantly advocating against the use of Sharia law in American legal decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, nobody's even thinking about it, I mean, but they're arguing against Islamic law, and in New York City, the police spy on mosques all over the city, and New York City police even go to other states to spy on mosques, etc. And this is all we don't want Islamic fundamentalists to attack New York again like in 9/11, But what they're doing is here are people meeting at a mosque, perfectly legal, doing nothing harmful, and the politicians are spying on them.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to Palestine, there's just nonstop demagoguery, and I'll tell you, every so often it breaks into the newspapers here. Now, I don't know. I presume you've heard of Sheldon Adelson.
No, actually.
Okay, all right. Now, this election, according to the Wall Street Journal, has cost about $6 billion. I'm not making up that number.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, in other words, $6 billion has been spent between the two parties that they know of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, and there's probably more. Now, the biggest single spender in the election is a guy named Sheldon Adelson, who is a Zionist, and he is spending. He said at the beginning of the election campaign that he was going to spend up to $100 million to beat Obama.
Actually, this is in your article. You said that in your article. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the newspapers had to carry that. I mean, one man is going to spend $100 million in an American election. I mean, there's never been anything like that.
For one sole purpose, right? For one sole purpose is to defeat Obama. In support of Israel, basically, isn't that the case?
Yes. All right. See, let me explain to your listeners.
Yeah.
All right. The overwhelming majority of American capitalists are, of course, of Christian background.
Mm-hmm.
However, American Jews, who are only 2% of the total population, 2 to 3%. I mean, you get different numbers from different polls.
Yeah.
But they are at least 20% of what's called the Forbes 400. In other words, Forbes magazine has an issue once a year called the Forbes 400 issue, and they list the 400 richest Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually interviewed the editor of the Forbes 400 issue in the 1980s, and I said, look, I think that Jews make up 20% of the Forbes 400. And he said that he would like to do an article on that because it's a success story for both the Jews and America that, that many Jews are among the top rich, and it hasn't generated anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. So, but he told me that the owner of Forbes magazine didn't want him to write the article because he was afraid that writing the article would create anti-Semitism. Yeah. But, now, I mean, a lot of people, this was in the 80s, and a lot of people were still living in the past, Hitler, so you can't talk about how rich so many Jews are, etc. But there's no doubt about it. The Forward, which is a leading Jewish weekly in New York, in 2007, they said 20% of the Forbes 400 are Jews.
Yeah.
Now, here's where it plays politically. The overwhelming majority of the Christian capitalists give money, campaign money, to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
All right. But now, according to the best of sources, about between between 1/3 and 2/3 of the private individual campaign contributions going to the Democratic Party come from Jews. Now, the guy who said that, and I'm quoting him, is Ron Tampias, who is the Washington bureau chief of the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. Now, that's sort of like, I don't know if you have it in Canada, Associated Press, which is a big newspaper network in the United States. Do you have it in Canada?
It's Canadian Press, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, in other words, what I'm saying is the Jewish Telegraphic Agency supplies articles to all the Jewish community newspapers. Like every important city in the United States has at least one Jewish weekly, and so the Jewish Telegraphic Agency supplies them. Now, I'm looking to see where it is. He says between 1/3 and 2/3. Oh, okay, here it is. Estimates over the years have reckoned that Jewish donors provide between 1/3 and 2/3 of the party's money. Now, he's referring to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what's been happening in this campaign is that Adelson and other Republican Zionists have been trying to convince that 1/3, that enormous group of Zionist contributors to the Democratic Party to go over to the Republican Party. Now, I can't tell you whether that has happened or not. I mean, part of the problem is now you have what they call super PACs, in, political action committees, PACs, in the United States, that the money sinks into them, and you never find out who's giving the money until months later, and so on and so forth. Understand, I'm not the only one saying that. The New York Times complains about this 2 times a week in an editorial, if you know what I mean. You know that it's getting out of hand. I mean, as I say, a total of $6 billion has been spent on this elections. Most of that comes from rich people like Adelson. Now, the biggest campaign contributor that I know of to the Democratic Party is George Soros. You're familiar with his name?
Yeah. He's
okay.
He supports
he's
the street organization.
Yes, Now understand what you have. I have to explain to your listeners. What you have is this elderly generation of Jewish rich who are handing over this kind of money to the Democratic Party, and some of them, like Adelson, to the Republican Party. But as far as young Jews are concerned, and this includes rich young Jews, they're not interested in Zionism. They're not interested in Zionism, nor really are they interested anymore in Judaism. In other words, their parents send them to a synagogue, they get bar mitzvah, at 13, and they drop away from the religion entirely. and their attitude is they see Zionism is tied in with the religion, and they don't want to have anything to do with it. Now, what the Zionists have done, and I know they're doing this in Canada as well, is they have now a thing called Operation Birthright Israel. Are you familiar with it in Canada?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, what they do is they literally pay for I think it's an 8-day visit to Israel. In other words, if you're between the age of 18 and 26, you can get a free trip to Israel. Now, when you get there, you're not really free. You know, it's a guided tour kind of thing, sort of like come visit Joe Stalin's Moscow or something like that. You know, you go from one place to the other, and you get lectured and told, and this, that, and the other thing.
They don't take them to Palestinian refugee camps.
Right. I mean, let me put it this way. Yeah. The kids who go on it, if I were 18 years old and somebody offered me a free trip to Israel like that, I'd go. You know, I mean,
it's a free ride.
I'm sorry, what?
It's a free ride, yeah.
It's a free ride, exactly. Yeah. Okay, but when they come back, the vast majority of them, that's it. They've been there, done that, as the saying goes. You know, they've been to Israel. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to marry that Catholic girl that I met at school. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. The intermarriage rate among young Jews now is at least 50%. Of young Jews marry Gentiles. So, and of course, they, most of them don't raise their kids in either the Jewish religion or whatever religion that the partner in the marriage comes from. The latest figure that I've seen is that 27% of young Jews are atheists. Yeah. So, they're simply not interested in Israel at the same time that the politicians, they kept giving so many standing ovations when Netanyahu came to Congress that, even the newspapers laughed about it, that, they kept standing up for everything he said. They burst into wild applause, etc.
Yeah, and, they don't do that for their president, for Obama.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in 2011, Tom Friedman, who's a leading New York Times columnist, told Netanyahu, quote, the standing ovation he got in Congress this year was bought and paid for by the Israel lobby. That's a quote from the New York Times. Yeah. Now, okay. Now, let me quote Gary Rosenblatt, who's the publisher of a New York weekly called The Jewish Week. Okay, and in August of this year, he wrote, "But now this is a quote. Yeah. But a major, if little publicized reason for all this attention is that Jews are major financial contributors to the parties. And that's not even counting Sheldon Adelson." Yeah. That's a quote. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Now, understand, Rosenblatt is a Zionist of a sort, but he's really a professional journalist, and to his credit, he spends a lot of time actually checking on what is the relationship today between the Jewish religion and the Jews. What is the relationship today between Zionism and American Jews? And his paper, The Jewish Week, I go to it every week to read because he has factual material because he's very concerned. You know, in other words, he is a Zionist and he is an Orthodox Jew, and he sees the young kids just walking the other way. You know, so he feels it's his duty to report this. I mean, and you know, I recommend the paper to people because he is actually trying to give a real picture of what is going on.
It's called the Jewish Week? What is it called? The Jewish Week, you said?
Jewish Week, it's called. Not Jewish Week.
Yeah, Jewish Week.
It's as I say, it's really a New York newspaper. You know, I mean, I'm sure it's on the internet. I mean, you know, you can look it up. You know, Google it. Yeah. And copy the article. So you know, that's the beauty of the internet today, is that you know, you can read things from all over the world. You know, so that I recommend. Yeah. And understand that when I read you from Compass before, this goes all the way back. Here is Margaret Truman, Harry Truman's daughter, and she published a biography of Harry Truman called Harry Truman, you know. Okay. And she describes how on October 6, 1947, at a Democratic meeting, National Chairman, quote, Bob Hannigan almost made a speech pointing out how many Jews were major contributors to the Democratic Party's campaign fund and were expecting the United States to support the Zionist position on Palestine. Now, understand, in 1947, what the situation was that the State Department, from their point of view, their attitude was, Harry, the Arabs have the oil, Harry. Don't mess with them, all right? But Hannigan, who was the party chair, what he said was, look, Harry, you want to get elected, you need campaign contributions. These big campaign contributors, they're all pro-Zionist. You've got to support the creation of a state of Israel. And Harry Truman, who was had started in politics as the front man for the corrupt Kansas City Democratic Party, one of the most corrupt political parties in American history, you know, he didn't have to be told twice. If the campaign contributors wanted an Israel, they were going to get an Israel, and that's simply it. Yeah. And this has gone on and on. I'm reading now. I'm looking. In 1985, the American Jewish Congress published a book called "The Political Future of American Jews" by Earl Robb and Seymour Martin Lipset, and they estimated that only 2.5% of the American people were Jews, but they went on, quote, while there have been few statistics on the subject and some reluctance to gather any, the journalistic and anecdotal evidence is overwhelming that more than a majority of Democratic funds and as much as a quarter of Republican funds have come from Jewish sources. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, I'm talking about two of the most corrupt parties in human history, the Republican and Democratic parties. Yeah. I'll tell your listeners that they have to understand that a rich pro-Zionist can't just walk in on a politician, throw down some money on his desk and bribe him. He has to sit in the waiting room and wait his turn with all the other bribe givers. You get my point? Yeah. In other words, what we're talking about is one example of the corruption of American politics by money going to politicians.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you say it comes from the Jews, you mean the 1% of the Jews, the rich Jews, basically.
Yes, I understand. Let me put it this way. Up until 1948, it's just the coincidence of the date that happens to be the year Israel was created. But up until 1948, a majority of Jews were blue-collar workers. Most of them worked for other Jews, but they worked. They were big part of the labor movement and so on. Now that's mostly gone today. Today, I would say a majority of, well, let me put it this way, 85% of American Jews go to college. So they're overwhelmingly professionals. I mean, a Jewish doctor is just a commonplace in America. A Jewish a journalist, a Jewish lawyer, you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
But they're not the rich. I mean, they're well off, but lawyers do pretty well, doctors do pretty well, but they're not the billionaires. Yeah. Like you said, the billionaires are the 1%. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, and they're the one who support these parties to influence them, really.
Right. As I say, once you get below the age of 30, let me put it this way: Rosenblatt, the man the publisher of the Jewish Week that I mentioned before, in one of his articles, he describes how if you go to the annual Salute to Israel Day parade in New York, he says it used to be all the Jews would come to the parade, and understand New York is 10% Jewish. Yeah. But now it's the only ones that come to the parade are the parents of the kids that come from the Jewish schools and the Orthodox. Now, the Orthodox Jews. Now, your listeners should understand that Orthodox Jews in America are no more than the scholars debate whether they're 10% of the Jews or 15% of the Jews. Mm-hmm. But that's all that they are. Now, that Orthodoxy is the official religion of the State of Israel. Mm-hmm. But when the Jews here are, as I say, 27% of the young kids are atheists. The largest Jewish religious group is a group called the Reformed Jews. Yeah. I don't know if they have that name in Canada, but that's what
they do.
They're called in the United States. And then the next largest group is a group called the Conservative Jews. Mm-hmm. Now, the difference between those two groups, the Reform, the Conservatives, and the Orthodox is very basic. In the Orthodox Jewish religion, all rabbis are men, okay? Mm-hmm. In the Reform and Conservative Jewish sects, you have male and women rabbis, mm-hmm. okay? In the Reform sect, you even have lesbian rabbis, all right? I mean, in other words, their attitude is homosexuality, that's a private matter, we don't care. Yeah. So, what simply has happened is that a gap has opened between the young Jews who are either atheists or else they are members of these religious groups that have women rabbis. When they go to Israel, they feel like a fish out of water. Their religion. Again, in the Jewish Week, I read an article. The Reform synagogues, they send their rabbinical students over to Israel for a year of, go to Israel, study in Israel, look at the historic sites, etc. And they go there, and they come back pro-Palestinian because when they're in the United States, they are considered rabbis. They can perform a marriage, and the marriage is recognized by the government. You know, if a Reform rabbi marries a couple, that's it. They've been married.
Yeah.
They go to Israel. They cannot perform a marriage in Israel.
Yeah.
You have to be an Orthodox rabbi in order for the marriage to legally count in Israel. So, you know, they just automatically, you know, say, what the hell is going on here? You know, why should I be pro this government that doesn't give me equality with an Orthodox rabbi?
Yeah.
Now,
in addition to that,
no, you were saying, go ahead.
There is segregation on buses in Jerusalem between men and women. It reminds you of the south of the states, you know, where blacks weren't allowed, or they were, but they were have to sit at the back. Now the woman in the same thing happening there. So I mean, it's really religious. And you mentioned in your article that Ben Gurion was secular, wasn't he? And why did he choose?
He's an atheist.
Atheist. Why did he choose to ally himself with the Orthodox?
Because he wanted their support. He was afraid that if he didn't recognize them as the only Jewish religion, that they would oppose Zionism. Now, what happened is that I would say most of them supported Zionism, although there's one group called the Satmar Jews who are pretty large. You know, about 50,000 of them or something like that here in the United States. Yeah, and they don't recognize the state of Israel at all. Yeah. And they're in an organization, some of them are in an organization called the Neturei Karta. Yeah. Perhaps you've heard of it.
Yeah, we're familiar.
And they come to every anti-Zionist demonstration, and when the Israel Day parade, when they have the march, they come with signs protesting against Israel. Yeah, yeah. But
these are
most of the Orthodox
they
support.
And the minority among the Orthodox Jews.
Yeah, they're a minority. All right, you know, you see, anti-Zionists are a minority among the Orthodox Jews. Yeah, yeah. But Orthodox Jews are a minority among the Jews. You know, if you can, you know, kind of get the arithmetic of that. No, as I say, all the Orthodox in the United States are no more than 15% of the Jews in the United States. Now understand, 27%. I mean, to give you the contrast, 27% of young Jews are atheists. Yeah, yeah. In other words, almost double the number of the Orthodox among the Jews. Now I want to make it very clear. Most of these people who are not pro-Zionist, they're not anti-Zionists. They're non-Zionists. In other words, they live in the United States, so when they leave the Jewish religion and Zionism behind them, there's no consequence. I mean, you know, they're just ordinary Americans, so they don't have to really think about Israel and Zionism. You know, it's not as if they lived in Israel and you know, had to deal with a Zionist government 24 hours a day. Yeah. So they're not anti-Zionist.
Yeah.
Now,
I want to ask you. I want to ask you a question around this subject, really. Being non-Zionist is really self-defeating because, the Zionists are speaking in the name of all the Jews, and the atrocities are committing are really, saying that we are doing it in the name of the Jews. So if the Jews in general don't stand up and say to the Zionists, no, you're doing it in your name, not in our name, isn't that, will contribute on the final analysis, it will contribute to anti-Semitism in the United States and Europe and Canada?
No, I'll tell you. You see, the reality is that if you ask if let us say a typical Gentile mother hears that her daughter wants to marry a Jew, she's actually happy because what it means in her mind is, oh, he's an educated man. Oh, good. He'll make some money. Good. In other words, what has happened in the United States is that the Jews, anti-Semitism is very insignificant. Most Jews never really encounter it anymore, in their lives. They read about it, but they don't encounter it. Yeah. And they marry Gentiles, and they live happily ever after. And, so you see, you're right and you're wrong with regards to what these Jews should do. Yes, these Jews, the Zionists are talking in the name of the Jews, and these guys are not, most young Jews are not Zionists. But on the other hand, they are not affected by the fact that the Zionists talk in their name. I mean, there's nobody that is pointing the finger at them because of the Zionists. Yeah. So, and in fact, now I have no idea who is going to win the election tomorrow. I mean, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a prophet's son, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But does it make difference?
Right. But I would say for certain that a majority of Jewish voters will vote for Obama. I mean, in other words, all the polls say that he'll get, 60, 65% of the Jewish vote. Now, they're not voting for him. The young Jews are not voting for him because he's pro-Zionist. Mm-hmm. They're voting for him because he's for abortion. They're voting for him because he's for maybe more, concerned about global warming, things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, you're right to say, hey, wait a minute, how come you guys are not talking about Palestine or Saudi Arabia or Afghanistan, etc.? But, let me put it this way. I collect proverbs from all over the world, and one proverb is one of my favorites, is that the fools outnumber the wise in every country in the world. Mm-hmm. All right? Now, tomorrow, the American people are going to vote, and it doesn't matter who wins. The majority of the American voters, when it comes to politics, are fools. Mm-hmm. They don't know enough about American history, enough about their own society, and this applies to the educated Jews as well. Mm-hmm. Let me put it this way: a doctor knows what he knows. He knows medicine. Yeah. But that doesn't make him a historian. Yeah. And it doesn't give him any insight into politics. Mm-hmm. So, as I say, the fact that the Jews are educated doesn't mean that they're educated in politics. Yeah. Now, I'm supporting Jill Stein who's running on the Green Party ticket here in the United States, and she happens to be Jewish, and she's very critical of Israel. I mean, she's not. I'm for one democratic secular state in binational state in Palestine. Neither. You understand what I mean by that.
Yes.
And the Green Party is for that, but she hasn't expressed that, but she is definitely, condemned Israeli injustices against the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. But my point is that, Rosenblatt in the Jewish Week says, listen, he knows that a lot of young Jews are going to vote for the Green Party because they don't respect Obama for his wars.
Yeah.
It's not so much Palestine as he's in Afghanistan. And let me put it this way. The New York Times has editorially said the United States should start getting out of Afghanistan now, and should take no more than a year to get out. Never mind Obama starting to get out in 2014. I mean, their attitude is that government there is so corrupt that you could stay there forever, and you'd be fighting forever, and Americans will be dying forever there. Yeah. So,
that's true also.
Just get out.
Yeah. Also, I have figures here. They say the U.S. tripled sales to a record high of $66.3 billion, and increased to 78% of all weapons sale. So, really, he's more hawkish than even Bush. He's selling, basically depending on the military industry for the recovery, and that's really promoting wars, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Let me put it this way. I'm 75. And I have vivid memories of World War II. I remember Pearl Harbor. I was 4.5 years old, but I remember it. Mm-hmm. And I'm mentioning this because during World War II, the American automobile industry stopped producing automobiles so that they could produce tanks. Yes. Now, the big difference between then and now is that now the weapons industry goes on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, on and on and on and on. It's central to the American economy. Yeah. In other words, we have now about 7.9% unemployment. Yeah. And I remember reading when the arms deal was made with Saudi Arabia, all of a sudden some politicians, Republican politicians in Idaho, who are busy denouncing Sharia law. Mm-hmm. Okay, in Idaho, you understand? Yeah. I mean, it's a menace to Idaho. Yeah. Okay, all of a sudden they realized that if the weapons deal went in, the Saudi army would actually, believe it or not, have to send people to Idaho to get trained. Mm-hmm. Because these are very complex weapons. I mean, you can't just deliver them and push on the gas pedal. You have to learn how to operate these weapons, and they were going to be trained in Idaho. And all of a sudden, these politicians shut up about Sharia law, and we're talking about how wonderful it is that Saudi Arabia is going to get all these weapons, and our citizens right here in Idaho would be training them. Oh boy, what a wonderful place, Saudi Arabia! Overnight. I mean,
it's a hypocrisy. We call it nifaq in Arabic. It's hypocrisy, pure hypocrisy. You
couldn't make this up if you know what I mean.
That's true. But, I want to ask you a crucial question, really. I mean, most of these weapons were sold to Arab countries, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and all these, kingdoms in the Middle East that don't allow any democracy or any free speech in their countries. But, I mean, as you said in your article, the American politicians are more Zionist than our Jews. How, if there is democracy and freedom in the Middle East, how are they going to do business, the American administration, how are they going to do business with a liberated Egypt or a liberated Saudi Arabia or liberated Bahrain? How are they going to convince people to buy anything, let alone weapons, from the Americans?
Well, you asked a very good question. Basically, as the Wall Street Journal devotes a lot of attention to that kind of question, and I'm not criticizing them. On the contrary, I mean, they're very serious because their readers are have money and they want to invest, and they want to know what they're investing in. And their attitude, what the Wall Street Journal, the reporters from the Wall Street Journal are saying is basically that Egypt has a real problem. It has to get funds from, investments from abroad. It's dependent on tourists from abroad, etc. So that they figure that, okay, it's an Islamic political party runs Egypt, but they're going to try and be nice so that they continue to get the $1 billion a year in American weapons for their military.
Yeah. And the price also to keep the Rafah crossing closed, which they are doing. Right,
exactly. I mean, in other words, let me put it this way: America was for Mubarak until a minute before he fell. Once they realized he was, when the revolt started, they were for him, and it took them, it took them a couple of looks, and then they realized he's going down the tubes. So we better say goodbye to him, But when they did that, the Saudis started yelling at them, "How dare you let this man go down?" Because the Saudi attitude is, listen, if the United States lets Mubarak go down, then what will they do if our people revolt?
Yeah.
They're not going to help us. And so, let me put it this way. Nobody in Egypt believes that America was for the revolt. They were for the revolt when they had no choice, if you follow what I mean. When it was obvious that Mubarak was going to go down, well, they abandoned him.
And I'm sure they are for freedom and free speech in Egypt, even at this moment. I mean, they say something and they do something else.
Right. Well, I mean, like in Bahrain, okay, the American Fifth Fleet is stationed in Bahrain.
Yeah. Now,
I just read a couple of days ago that as of now, all demonstrations in Bahrain are outlawed. And I think Hillary Clinton said something, but that's all she did. I mean, she's not pulling the fleet out of Bahrain.
Or punishing them.
And they're not afraid of her words.
No, yeah.
And they're right not to be afraid of her words. She is committed to American imperialism, and that's it.
No, that's it. And again, I just want to go back to the elections. It seems the American people, or the poor, which constitute the 99% of the American people, really gonna get a bum deal from these elections. Whoever wins from the Democrats or the Republicans, again, it, like you said, the imperialist aspirations of such a regime, it's not going to just hurt its own people, but also all people all over the world. And
all over the world, absolutely.
And it's, I think the Palestinian people are on the forefront of the oppression in the Middle East, and every government, their puppet governments of the U.S. Are conspiring against the Palestinian struggle. Even some of our leaders, like the current leadership in Ramallah. But having said that, is there anything positive will come out of the situation in the Arab world and the so-called Arab Spring?
Yes, let me put it this way. A lot of Americans are following what's going on there now. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times say that there are hundreds of thousands of Americans who go to Al Jazeera on the Internet, for example, nowadays. They just go right to it, to the English language version when something breaks in the Middle East. Yeah. And, let me put it this way. At this particular point, I would say that it's up to the Palestinians and the Arabs in general to get their act together. In other words, one of the big criticisms that I have of the Palestinian movement is that I believe in a democratic, secular, binational state in Palestine. I mean, it was an Arab country. The Zionists took it over. There's now millions of Israelis there as well as Palestinians. I'm for one state with, no official religion or freedom of religion for everybody. And, if they want to elect an Arab, that's fine. If they want to elect a Jew, that's fine. For office, that's their business. Okay. Yeah. The only problem is that I don't see any substantial group of Arabs and Jews who are calling for that. I mean, many individuals do. I know that. But there's no equivalent in Palestine of the African National Congress in South Africa. I'm talking about when they were fighting against apartheid.
No, that's
what happened there was the African National Congress started many years before as an all-black organization, and then when they realized, hey, if we want to win, we have to recruit whites and Asians because there's a couple of million of both of them here, and they started doing that, and they won. And I don't see that in Palestine now. In other words, I can't point to a particular organization and say that's the organization that's going to beat Zionism. And what I tell Palestinians is sit down and draw up Palestinians and progressive Israelis. I tell them the same thing. Sit down together, set up a committee, 5 Palestinians, 5 Israelis, to draw up a draft constitution for a democratic secular state. What would it look like? Put it down on paper. And my feeling, I'll tell you, my feeling is if they did that, the newspapers here, the New York Times, et cetera, would actually say to Abbas and Netanyahu, okay, what do you guys think about this? What problem do you have with democracy and secularism, etc.? You get my point. In other words, let me put it this way: a big wing of the American educated vote for the Democratic Party as the lesser of two evils. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're not infants. Yeah. They know that the government, the Democratic Party is corrupt and imperialist, etc. It's just that it's better than by an inch than the Republicans.
I always say lesser than two evils is evil nonetheless, and that's why you're not.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely correct. Yeah. I mean, and that is exactly what I tell them is, hey, you're talking about the lesser evil. The emphasis is on lesser. Yeah. My emphasis is on the evil. I mean, Obama may be good on abortion for women here, but in the United States, but he is arming Saudi Arabia, which denies women the right to drive a car. And I don't know yet. Have they yet voted even in municipal elections?
No, not as far as I know. They're talking about it.
Right.
They're talking about it. But again, as you said also, he's the best president Israel ever had, as you had in your article.
Oh, yes. He
Yeah. By the way, I just want to see if your article is anywhere posted on the internet, so people could go to it, because it's really important and informative.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, we do.
Put it on your website.
Okay, we'll try to do that, so people could go to the Voice of Palestine starting tomorrow and see the article. Okay.
Okay,
and our call extends with your call for a formation of a movement, because the PLO is dead, really, and we need a new movement to include both Jews and Palestinians for a free, democratic, secular Palestine. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely. I'll tell you. Did you see the poll that some long articles about it in Haaretz?
Yeah.
About how many Jews don't want to live in the same building as Arabs and don't want their kids, etc.
Yeah, they believe in apartheid. Yeah, basically, that's it. Yeah.
Right. Okay, but understand that's a majority believe in apartheid, but there's a minority that doesn't believe in apartheid.
That's true, yeah.
You see my point?
No, that's true, and the future is for those people, because, apartheid didn't survive anywhere else. Why should it survive in Palestine, Israel?
Exactly. But as I say, the progressive Palestinians, like you say, the PLO is bankrupt. Yeah. Progressive Palestinians and progressive Israelis have to get their act together. They have to set up an organization. And like I say, you start off with there's 5 Israelis, 5 Palestinians.
We totally agree with you, Lenni, and it's about time. It's overdue, actually, that the movement should be created to confront Zionism and U.S. interest in the Middle East among the Palestinians and Jews in historic Palestine.
Well, I'm sure, as I say, I didn't make up the story that the Wall Street Journal says hundreds of thousands of Americans, when anything breaks in the Middle East, they go automatically to Al Jazeera. Mm-hmm. Now, what that shows is that there is a potential of picking up support here for progressive movements there. I mean, that it's You see, the disadvantage of lesser evilism is that after a while, some people say, "Wait a minute, this is nonsense." You know, I mean, let me give you an example of what I mean. It doesn't relate to the Middle East, but it's an example. Today, most Americans believe that marijuana should be legal. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because if you grow up in America today, everybody, when they're young, one of the signs that they're growing up is they smoke marijuana.
They experiment
now,
with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Obama smoked it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I mean, Clinton smoked it.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, Obama said he did. You know, I mean, he wrote about it. Okay, yeah. Now, Obama raids medical marijuana. You know, the federal government under Obama raids medical marijuana stores in California. Yeah. Now, the reason why he can get away with that is because most of the marijuana smokers are going to vote for him anyway. Yeah, yeah. As the lesser of two evils. Yeah, yeah. You know, you know, he can now, you know, at a certain point, I mean, you know, you were either for slavery or you were against slavery. You know, you didn't vote for a slavery party as the lesser of two evils. No, you know, no, that's it. And that, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But as I say, in the case of Palestine, it's up to progressive Palestinians and Israelis to sit down and set up their own organization and come to the American public.
And most Americans are, like you said, are open-minded. They just want to see something that fair and just everywhere in the world, you know. Thank you, Lenni, and keep up the good work. And we will post your article, and we ask our listeners to visit our website and read it there. We'll post it on Voice of Palestine. Thank you.
All right. And anytime, give me a call. I'm always ready to talk.
Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. Bye-bye, folks.